The Last Fence Line. Montana Territory, 1891. Ellis Reyes had ridden 200 miles to deliver a bull, not to fall in love, and he would have said as much to anyone who asked. Nobody asked. The bull was a red Durham named Duke, purchased sight unseen by a rancher named Margaret Calloway, and Ellis's only job was to get the animal from the rail depot in Miles City to the Calloway spread without losing him, breaking a leg, or getting himself gored in the process. He was 24, quiet in the way of men who had spent more time with cattle than people, and good at his job in a manner that drew little notice because it looked effortless. It was not effortless. It was 10 years of paying attention. The Calloway Ranch sat at the base of a long ridge, 11,000 acres of grass that had been fought for, litigated over, and finally won by a woman whose husband had died 3 years earlier and whose neighbors had assumed, wrongly, that this meant the ranch would soon belong to someone else. Margaret Calloway was 36. She met Ellis at the gate with dust on her boots and a rifle she was not currently pointing at anything, which he took as a good sign. "You're later than the telegram said," she told him. Duke didn't care for the rail car, Ellis said. "We came to an understanding outside of Billings." She looked past him at the bull, who was standing in the trailer with the settled patience of an animal that had, in fact, come to an understanding. Something crossed her face that was not quite approval and not quite amusement, but shared a border with both. "Bring him in," she said. "Then come find me. We need to talk about the fence." The fence, it turned out, was the actual problem, and the bull had only been the excuse to get a stranger with steady hands onto the property to look at it. The eastern line, for miles of it, marking the boundary between Calloway land and the neighboring Sorrel Ranch, had been cut in 6 places over the past 2 months. Not broken. Cut, with wire tools, cleanly, in the kind of pattern that suggested someone wanted cattle to wander without wanting to be caught doing the wandering. "Sorrel's boy runs the operation now," Margaret said, standing at the porch rail that evening while Ellis ate the supper she had not been obligated to offer him and had offered anyway. "His father used to lease grazing rights from us every summer. Fair price, handshake deal, 15 years running. The son ended the lease the week he took over. And now your cattle keep finding their way onto land he doesn't have to pay to use," Ellis said. "That's the theory nobody can prove." He set down his fork. "I could stay a few days. Watch the line." She looked at him for a long moment, the kind of look that was doing arithmetic he could not see the terms of. "I was going to offer you work through the fall regardless," she said. "Duke needs someone who can actually handle him, and my last foreman left in the spring, and I'm tired of hiring men who assume that because I'm a woman running this place, I'm running it wrong. I never assumed that." "I noticed," she said, and went back inside before he could decide what to make of the sentence. He found the 7th cut wire on a Tuesday, and this time there were tracks. A single horse, shod, moving away from the fence line toward Sorrel land, in no particular hurry, the gait of someone who believed himself unwatched. He followed them for 2 miles before they crossed onto Sorrel property and he had the sense to stop. That night he told Margaret what he'd found. She listened the way she listened to everything, without interrupting, and when he finished she went to a drawer in the ranch office and pulled out a ledger. "I've been keeping account," she said. "Head of cattle unaccounted for at each roundup, going back 2 years. It started slow. It's gotten worse since the son took over." She pushed the ledger toward him. 41 animals. At current prices, that's not a nuisance. That's a fortune, moved slowly enough that no single year looks like theft. Ellis studied the numbers. "You need more than tracks and a ledger. You need to catch it happening." "I know. Then I'll watch the line at night. Starting tomorrow." She looked at him with the same unreadable arithmetic as before. "That's not part of what I hired you for." "No," he agreed. "It isn't." She didn't argue further. That, he would come to understand, was as close as Margaret Calloway came to saying thank you. He caught the rider on the 9th night, a young ranch hand from the sorrel spread named Walt Dunmore, cutting wire by lantern light with the unhurried confidence of a man who had done it many times without consequence. Ellis didn't confront him. He watched, memorized the direction the cattle were driven, and rode back to tell Margaret before first light. "We go to the sheriff," she said, "not the sorrel boy. If we go to him first, he'll have 3 days to make Dunmore disappear and call it a misunderstanding." The sheriff was a deliberate man named Voss who took statements the way Ellis handled cattle, slowly, and without missing anything. Dunmore, confronted with tracks, timing, and a ledger of 2 years' losses, did not hold up long. He gave up the sorrel son's name within the hour, along with the buyer in Miles City who had been taking the diverted cattle off their hands at a discount and asking no questions. The sorrel son was not arrested. The money had moved through enough hands to make that difficult, but the arrangement ended, publicly and completely, and the eastern fence line stayed whole for the first time in 2 years. Margaret found Ellis at the corral the evening it was settled, working with Duke, who had progressed from tolerating him to actively seeking him out, which for a Durham bull was roughly equivalent to affection. 41 head, she said. At current prices. I heard. I could have lost the ranch to that, eventually. Slowly, the way it was going. She leaned on the rail beside him. I've been doing this alone since Robert died. Everyone assumed I'd sell within the year. I didn't, because I decided a long time ago that I wasn't going to hand this place to anyone who thought I couldn't hold it. You held it, Ellis said. I held it because a stranger who came to deliver a bull decided to stay up nights watching a fence line that wasn't his problem. He turned to look at her. It became my problem the second I understood what was happening on it. She was quiet for a moment, watching Duke lower his head for Ellis's hand the way he lowered it for no one else on the property. The fall work is nearly done, she said. You've got no reason to stay past October, if you don't want one. I didn't come here looking for a reason, Ellis said. I came here delivering a bull. And now? He held her gaze, the way he'd learned to hold Duke's, steady, unhurried, not looking away first. Now I think I found one anyway. Something in her face changed, the way weather changes on the ridge, not sudden, but complete once it arrives. Stay through winter, she said. See if it's still true in the spring. I don't need till spring to know. I know you don't, she said. I do. He nodded, because that was fair, and because some things were worth being patient for. They were married the following June, in the yard between the house and the stable, with the eastern fence standing whole in the distance and Duke watching the ceremony from the corral with the mild, proprietary interest of an animal who had, in his own way, been the one to bring them together. Ellis Reyes rode 200 miles to deliver a bull. He stayed to fix a fence, and found, in the process, the one thing he hadn't known he was looking for. That's not how he planned the trip. It's exactly how it should have gone.